Alright, what's up ladies and gentlemen? I'm here to bring you another amazing video. Don't really have much to say today, I just want to dive straight in. I wasn't initially going to do a daily principle video today, but there's just so much that happened in the last, what has it been, 16 hours that I just had to talk about it because I find this super interesting, and the philosophical thing that I want to talk about at the end is also, I feel like, very interesting and could help a lot of people and could change their perspective on a couple of things. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to say regarding that, and yeah, let's just jump right into it. All right, so it is January 28th. Oh wait, shoot. Damn. I was just looking over my notes for today and I accidentally put the 27th for everything, so that's my bad. Okay, I'm gonna change that. Alright, I'll change that after I'm done filming. Okay, so let's get into it. Today was a big day for the United States, I would say. Well, not necessarily a big day, but the first thing I want to talk about is that the Fed expected to hold rates steady. The U.S. Federal Reserve is widely expected to keep interest rates unchanged at its meeting today, marking the start of a sustained pause in rate cuts. Data showing resilient consumer spending and inflation still above target supports this stance. Market focus is now on guidance and future policy signals rather than a change in the policy itself. So I feel like that's kind of good for us, but also kind of, well, I have mixed emotions on it. I'm not gonna talk about it too much because I didn't research that enough, and I don't want to completely, say something dumb and then you guys go believe it and spread misinformation. Because, that's a really big problem these days. A lot of people spread misinformation and yeah, it's not good. All right, gold and silver hit record levels again. Precious metals continue their historic run with gold reaching fresh all-time highs above $5,300 per ounce. That is insane. Like 3 days ago, I believe it was at $5,100. And silver climbing strongly. Investors are moving into safe haven assets as uncertainty about global policy, currency strength, and trade dynamics persists. I don't think I really mentioned how I structure the way I talk about things too clearly yet. Basically, I read all the major articles that happened in financial and geopolitics that day, and I basically give a brief summary, type up a brief summary in my own words as to what I think this article meant, and then I do a little bit more research on it, see how it means, and then I put these articles together. And then I put these summaries together. So when I'm talking to you guys and telling you about all this stuff, it's a bunch of articles that I put a summary on top of just to inform you guys. And then I'll go into what it actually means for us as regular people, for us, how it'll affect us, so on and so forth. So with that being said, let's get into article number 3. ECB officials flag weak dollar and euro dynamics. I'll put up an image of what the ECB is if you guys don't know. So the European Central Bank policy, I think that was pretty self-explanatory. European Central Bank policymakers warned that the euro's stronger appreciation against the US dollar could dampen inflation pressures in the eurozone, complicating the ECB's policy outlook. A weak dollar is now influencing global currency markets and monetary policy debates across regions. All right, number 4, ECB calls for European payments autonomy. An ECB executive highlighted the strategic need for a European controlled cross-border payments infrastructure to reduce reliance on US-dominated systems. The shift reflects broader efforts in Europe to strengthen economic sovereignty in the face of geopolitical uncertainty. Actually, I think here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about what this means for us after I talk about the article. I think that'll be a little bit better than me going into it later, but I'll go into a summary of everything that I talked about after that, but I'm also going to include what it means for regular people like us after the article. Okay, I don't really have a summary for that one. Alright, so my microphone kind of fell out of my hands, so it fell out of the stand, so I have it in my hands now. Alright, number 5, Bank of Canada expected to hold rates too. The Bank of Canada is also anticipated to maintain its key interest rate at current levels as inflation and economic indicators show mixed signals. This decision will feed into broader expectations of central bank strategies heading into 2026. Oh wait, I think I have a summary for that one. Oh, I'm gonna go into that later because that one was a big thing. Okay, 6, global markets turn defensive. Across Asia Pacific, equity markets opened under pressure, reflecting broader risk-off positioning. Export-oriented economies saw selling as currencies strengthened, particularly the yen, and safe haven demand grew for assets like Swiss franc and government bonds. 7, Swiss franc surges to decade high. The Swiss franc strengthens sharply against the US dollar, reaching levels not seen in over a decade. This reflects global demand for perceived safe haven currencies and risk aversion, such as strength can slow inflation in Switzerland and complicate export competitiveness. I just want to appreciate the Swiss franc because that is one of my favorite currencies. I actually have a couple, and hold on, let me show it. It's the most beautiful currency in my opinion. Let me show it really quickly. I brought out a 50, a 20, and a 10. I have a little bit more, but those are just the ones that were the easiest to access right now. Because I didn't have to look for that. Not gonna lie, it's kind of lazy of me, but yeah. Just look at how beautiful, I don't know, hold on, let me see. There we go. Look at how beautiful it is. Here's the other side. That's the 50, here's the 20, and the 10. Absolutely beautiful. Shout out to the Swiss franc. All right, now I'm gonna get into what this means for regular people, because Canada also held its interest rates, US held its interest rates, and the Swiss franc surged like crazy. Okay, for regular people. Stable or higher interest rates means mortgages and loans stay expensive for now, but I believe the interest rate is actually good. I believe it's at a 3.5% nationwide, but I could be wrong for mortgages and stuff like that, so I'll throw up on the screen right now what for the mortgages and everything is. Okay, savings and returns. Low risk assets like government bonds won't likely improve yield quickly, but safe havens like gold may persist as part of investment strategies. All right, currency impacts. A stronger Swiss franc and weaker dollar change level. Oh my goodness, I'm completely off today. A stronger Swiss franc and weaker dollar change travel and import/export costs, which can subtly affect prices on all goods and services, on certain goods and services, not all goods. Wow, completely off today. Oh, completely forgot. I didn't even get to this article yet. The Aussie dollar jumps on inflation data. Australians' inflation data came in higher than expected, lifting the Australian dollar. This raises the possibility that the Reserve Bank of Australia may need to keep higher rates for longer, especially as inflation remains above target. All right, that also falls into what I was just talking about. Okay, next, Asian Financial Forum concludes. The Asian Financial Forum in Hong Kong wrapped up with leaders from businesses and governments gathering to discuss economic cooperation, investment flows, and Asia's role in the global economy. This event is closely watched for clues on global financial trades and policy coordination. Okay, now I'm gonna talk about a brief summary of everything that I talked about, just so that we can kind of recap and talk about if the things that I haven't said about what it means, for us. Okay. Quick summary. Monetary policy and markets. The Fed holding rates signals policymakers are focused on inflation stability rather than the recession prevention. Markets will now trade on forward guidance more than rate changes. ECB concerns. ECB concerns about currency dynamics shows that the central banks are balancing inflation goals with external pressures. Defensive positioning in global markets, stronger safe haven currencies, and government bond demand reflects investor caution. Safe haven flow in commodities. Precious metals reaching record highs shows broad uncertainty. Gold and silver are acting as hedge assets against policy risks and current volatility. Currency strength in the Swiss franc and Australian dollar points to, wow, I spelled that so wrong. Bifurcation, there we go, in risk perception and regional inflation trends. Global structural shifts. Europe's push for payments autonomy highlights longer-term strategic decoupling in financial infrastructure. Central banks across major economies are aligning around the pause rather than cuts, which means higher interest rates remain a baseline risk factor. All right, for regular people, I already talked about 2 of these, 3 of these. So now the last one that I want to talk about is inflation and cost of living. Central banks holding rates suggest inflation pressures haven't gone away. This can continue to influence everyday prices, especially on services and necessities, which, let's be realistic, those prices are not going down, so it can only mean one thing, and that one thing being that they are going up, which is not good for us because everything is, expensive as is. So yeah, very interesting day today. Very good day for some countries, very okay-ish day for others. Yeah, that about sums up what I want to talk about geopolitically, financially, and related stuff. So now, let's move on to the more philosophical side of things.
Alright, so for the philosophical side of things, I don't have any scripts for this. For 90% of the philosophical things I talk about, I don't have scripts for, so I just completely wing it. So if I stutter a little bit, I'm human, it happens. But yeah, I just want you guys to know this is absolutely real. From me, I don't have a script going, talking from, myself, from experience that I've had myself, etc. So I hinted at it a little bit earlier in this video, saying, people spread misinformation, and it's very true. People do spread misinformation, and honestly, it just comes down to how you handle it. Like, if you just don't care about it, then you're absolutely fine. Move on with your day. And like I said yesterday, use that misinformation can be interpreted as hate too. And a lot of times, misinformation comes from people that hate you. I use hate very lightly. I don't mean like actually hate, I mean like dislike. So just keep that in mind. It's very funny to me because the only reason, if I didn't have a YouTube channel or if I didn't have, any kind of social media presence, I normally, any day of the week, I would go and I would not care. But anytime somebody, I'm using me as an example, but this applies to you guys too. This applies to anyone. For me personally, I look at it and I respond to it just because I want to, get more views on that, because I know they'll come back and they'll interact more, and I use that to get more views. And, recently I'm up a couple thousand views, thankfully, just because, sometimes you have to know how to handle it. And that misinformation can be used to your advantage. That hate can be used towards your advantage. So I don't want you to sit there and kind of, get upset every time somebody says a lie about you, or get upset every time somebody spreads misinformation about you or hates you. I want you to figure out how you can use that to your advantage, because oftentimes most people just get sad at it. They don't realize that, they're hurt. They don't realize that they're just saying this stuff just because they can. They sit there and they think, oh, it hurt me so bad, I'm so sad about it now. No, use that misinformation, use that hate towards your advantage. Get, more views with it on social media, or just don't bother with it at all. If you just leave it alone, it'll go away over time. It doesn't matter. All they're trying to do is get a reaction from you. But when you calm down and when you realize that all they're doing is trying to get a reaction from you, like I said, just, you gain some kind of power, I would say, where that person just doesn't matter in your mind anymore. So take that with you, think on it, and thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day or night, depending on where you are or what time it is. Thank you for watching once again.